Welcome to Moto Academy Members Podcast Episode 3, where we dive deeper into the world of motocross and the life of the Moto Academy community. This time I'm hosting this podcast. I'm Christian Geloof, and in this episode I have a fascinating discussion with the real GP. As the conversation went on for more than an hour, I decided to cut the episode in parts of about half an hour. Whether you are a TMA member or just curious about motocross, this podcast could be for you. Sit back, relax, and join us in this journey as we learn more about the life of each of the members. If you like the podcast, please give the thumbs up. Let's get started. This is part 1 of episode 3. Gentle people, welcome to episode number 3. I have a special guest today. And the special guest, let me click that. That is Greg Page, or better known as the Real GP. The Real GP is born, I think, in the USA. Is that correct?
That is correct. I was born in Preston, Idaho. If you've ever seen the movie Napoleon Dynamite, that's my hometown where that was filmed.
Okay. Funny.
That should tell you everything you need to know about how weird I am. So.
I don't think you're weird. Do not worry. For the rest of the world, of course, you already said it. I put here a map on, and it's a little bit small, but I will enlarge it. And I put a line on this map, over here, from here to there. And that is indeed 8,733 kilometers or 5,426 miles. And that is then a bird's.
That's not as far as I thought.
No, yeah, it can be further, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And currently we are 8 hours apart, and you're saying you're not doing daylight saving, huh?
No, we're not. So I was born in Idaho, but I live in Arizona now, and Arizona does not follow the rest of the United States with daylight savings. And so right now we're the same time as California, so we're basically on Pacific time. It's about 10 p.m.
Yeah, so indeed that is the funny thing. So you're almost 10 p.m. and I'm at 6 a.m. Huh?
Oh my goodness!
So I had to wake up really early to have this talk.
You look a lot fresher than I do at 6. I'll just do that.
Well, to be honest, I started sleeping a little bit early starting from this weekend, because if you have to go so early, then I did it in steps a little bit. The thing is, I'm very glad that we can do it this week, because as of next week, it will be 9 hours apart.
Oh my goodness! So do you in Europe do daylight savings as
Yes.
well? Okay, interesting. Yeah, it's good we got it done now then.
Yeah, exactly. Because if I would do it next week, I'm even 1 hour later normally. So, but okay, that's okay. I had a bunch of questions prepared.
Okay.
We start first with some general questions, and then I have a huge amount of questions about motocross. Of course, we're in this community, so that makes sense that I have questions about motocross.
I should hope so. It's my favorite thing to talk about. So.
Okay, let's get this general stuff out of the way then. So, can you tell me a little bit about your family composition? So,
I sure can. So my wife, Kiralee, and I have been married for 20 years, and we have 3 children. Our oldest is Ryder. He's 17. Our next child is Ruby. She's 14. And then we have a second boy, Hudson, who is 6.
6.
And
that right?
he's 6 years old. Yeah. And Ryder was born very premature and has some severe physical disabilities as a result. And so, it just made circumstances harder to have more kids than that. And so, but we've got 3 amazing kids. They're all wonderful, and we're very fortunate.
Nice. Yeah, I did listen to your podcast that you shared, of course.
Oh,
It was,
okay.
I think intense story, and also very nice that you dare to share these things. And it was also so funny how the people who were doing the podcast that how happy they were with Ryder. That was so nice to hear.
Yeah, they're wonderful people. Those were two of the physical therapists at
Yes.
Ryder Clinic, and yeah, that clinic is a second family to us. We love those guys, and I do have to say that a Ryder gets a lot of attention because he needs a lot of attention,
Hmm.
but I mean Ruby is the most, like, she's probably the easiest 14-year-old girl to deal with. She's super smart. Like I can't argue with her. I can't negotiate with her because she's brilliant,
Ah, yeah.
and her VS meter is like, it's so highly functional. She can, if somebody tries to pull the wool over her eyes, she sees right through it. She's super smart, and she's very musical. She plays violin. She wants to play like
Oh,
bluegrass fiddle, and so she just picked that up about a year ago, and she's doing really well with it.
wow. Yeah,
And
it's very hard instrument, violin. That's
yeah, it's something I always wanted to learn and never really got it. So,
yeah, well, nice.
and
Okay.
then Hudson, he's like the quintessential boy. He's always bouncing off stuff and wants to wrestle, and he also does violin as well. And so he has a little musical bone in his body too. But yeah, just a fun kid. We call him Holiday Hud because with Hudson, he's always looking forward to the next holiday. Well, St. Patrick's Day just happened. What's the next holiday, Dad? Well, it's Easter. Well, cool. What do we do for Easter? And that's Hudson. Always looking for the next exciting thing to do. And yeah, he's just so much fun.
Cool. Nice. It's also when I talk to you, but it was also for me very clear in this interview is that you really enjoying being that parent, right? That is how
Oh
you talk
yeah.
about it. It really sounds that also because people do not know that, but we had some talks already with WhatsApp or via the app,
Mhm.
and also with your wife. I think you have a good way of communication, huh?
Yes, we do. Yeah, I think we might be a little bit out of the norm that, like, we have a really good relationship. Like, even when I go to the track and I'm with all my Moto Academy buddies at the track, I
Yeah,
still kind of miss her a little bit, even though I'm going to be
yeah,
home
yeah,
in a couple hours with her. And
yeah.
this is how it is. She's my best friend, my best bud,
Yeah.
and
Ah,
like, I miss her every day when I'm at work.
yeah, oh yeah. Okay, now that's the bridge. Let's work. What do you do
Work.
for work?
I am a construction estimator for a company called Sunt Construction. It's a large construction company. We specialize in water treatment plants, mining operations, highways, and high rises. So
Okay.
we have about six different groups or divisions in our company,
Yeah.
and we cover a lot of ground, all in big construction. So, today I was looking at water tanks for a mining operation, and structural steel on a water treatment plant in Oregon. And that's the kind of stuff we do. So I do a lot of I work in the pre-construction department. So
Yeah. So
when
do you make drawings or you do calculations? How does that work? Or
I,
both? Or
I take drawings that other people make and I make calculations off those. So we'll look at those
exactly.
drawings and figure out how much materials we need,
Yes.
um, what kind of labor costs it's going to take
Oh,
to uh, to
also
install
labor
them.
cost.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yep. And then I work a lot with different vendors and subcontractors. Um, yeah,
Cool.
yeah, we've got a lot of stuff going on, and it's really busy, but it's really good work and a great company to work for.
Sounds good. But you just recently moved, is it not? Like 1 year ago?
It was about, well, we did a short move. We moved
Oh.
to from one house in our neighborhood to another,
Ah,
and
okay.
I think you're referring to when Yeeted and Deleted and Needs More Practice came and helped me move. And
Hmm.
yes, and that just goes to show you what kind of community we have here in the Moto Academy.
Yeah, I know that. Huh? That's amazing.
I didn't even ask them. They offered. They said, "Hey, we've got a trailer. How about we come move you?" And we had some people from our local church congregation had offered to help. And by the time they showed up,
Yeah.
Deleted and deleted and needs more practice, and I had it all moved. We were done. It was incredible. Those guys. So we could go off on a tangent here. But before we do that, I do want to shout out my company, Sons Construction, really quick, because if you
Yeah.
remember last October, a few of us in the Moto Academy went to Glen Helen in California, and we raced the 24 hours of Glen Helen race.
Yes, exactly.
Stunt Construction sponsored the entire race. They paid for our entire
Wow.
race.
Wow.
Yes,
That's
it was
nice.
incredible. And as far as monetary sponsors, well, we had a few other sponsors. So between everybody, we got the whole race covered. But they were kind of the title sponsor. They put up a bunch of cash for us to go. Super cool.
Okay.
But back to that move and yeeted and deleted. So about, let's see, when was it? Almost 3 years ago, I was living up in eastern Washington State in the Pacific Northwest of the United States,
Yeah.
and the Moto Academy app was kind of new. Colton Brady, who's in the app, was my riding buddy. We rode every weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and then we knew it was time to come back home to Arizona,
Okay.
and so we moved to Arizona, and I couldn't find anybody to ride with. And this is when the first version of the Moto Academy app was just starting to fire off.
Yeah.
And we didn't have really a community page, but we had the live chat. And so anytime AJ would go on and do a live, and people would start piping in where they were from, I'd look, and if there was in Arizona,
Yeah. Exactly.
I'd find him and I'd DM him. I'd be like, "Hey, where in Arizona are you at? Who do you ride with?" Because
Yeah,
like
exactly.
the neighborhood we moved into, everybody had dirt bikes. Nobody would like. I went and asked everybody to go riding with me, and nobody would go riding with me. It was the weirdest thing.
Oh,
But needs more practice. I saw him in the app,
yeah.
and we met up at our first class at Motoland,
Yeah.
and we've just been thick as thieves ever since. And Yeeted and Deleted is his cousin, and so he brought him into the app. Needs more practice brought him into the app, and I probably talk to Needs More Practice once a week. Yeeted and Deleted almost every day. I can just about set my watch on a 4 p.m. call from Yeeted and Deleted when he's driving home and I'm driving home from work.
Yeah, that's good.
Have
That's
our
nice.
chat. And then Austin Bott, I talk to him almost every day as well. And so
Really?
yes, and
Okay.
he's here in Arizona as well. And so this community has become my second family. The guys I ride with are all in the community. I've gotten my brother, the big BP, into the app. We got Colton Brady into the app, and then he's created his own little community up in the Pacific Northwest, which is pretty wonderful. But yeah, this is where all my friends are at, and this weekend we're having a bunch of them over for a barbecue,
Yeah, that's
and
nice.
we're gonna watch Supercross together. So
But I didn't want to go in this too deep, but what I
Okay.
find interesting what you say is that you say you have in your neighborhood people with bikes and they don't want to drive with you. That is a little bit. I see that also a little bit at my track that I don't know why, but people are not so open for a talk or something. It makes a difference. What I see, at least myself, because normally I used to ride a lot with one friend, and well, he's just a little bit less into the driving. He's also getting a little bit older, I guess. And so I often go alone, and especially if I go to a track where I do not go a lot, then I just park somewhere next to some guys, and all of a sudden, when I'm there on my own, it's much easier to get a little bit of contact. But indeed, if I ask guys, "Hey, can I have your phone number so next time when you go, maybe I do WhatsApp?" Then you're like, "Yeah, no, no, no."
yeah, yeah, I kind of experienced that same thing, and so
Like, okay, yeah,
yeah. And so
like
I'm
this,
really fortunate that the guys we have inside the Moto Academy in Arizona, we're
yeah,
not that way. Their whole idea was, well, if we have fun riding together, we're going to have more fun if there's more of us. And so,
exactly, yeah,
yeah,
that's how it is.
and
Okay,
so, yes,
I
go
want
ahead.
to
All right,
cut this thing a little bit.
sounds good.
Hey, you play the guitar,
I do play the guitar.
and because there was once a moment that I'm not sure if you were the one, but somebody started sharing, "I have a guitar. Do you have anybody else has a guitar?" And then a
And
lot of people,
not everybody has a guitar.
yeah, it was a little bit like that. But in your case, you're also playing the guitar actively, right?
Yeah, I do. And probably like most people, not as actively as I'd like to, but
Oh,
I play
yeah.
whenever I get a chance, and I play a few instruments, and so I often find myself getting into
Still.
situations where I fill in where there might be a gap in a band. Like for example, my next door neighbor,
Yeah.
he's 50 feet that way from me.
Yeah.
He's a singer and a songwriter, and so I play mandolin and banjo
Whoa.
and lap steel for him, and we have a couple regular gigs that we play, and we just play old country music,
Okay.
and it's a lot of fun.
Nice. So indeed you also play different types of yeah, let's say snare instruments then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So did you start very young with that?
When I was 5 years old,
Yeah.
my mom started me in piano lessons.
Oh, piano lessons.
Yeah, and so I took piano lessons for 11 for about 11 years, and I hated every second of it.
Yeah. That
Because,
was my problem as well. I don't
uh-huh.
like it.
And I think if my mom would have set the piano up and said, "You're not allowed to touch it," I would have been all over it.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah. That's how that works. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I played piano for really actively for 11 years, and that was from about age 5 to 16. I quit taking lessons when I was 16. I
Yeah,
just
that
stopped.
is a critical age, I would say.
And but during that time period, I started playing percussion in the school band and became pretty proficient in drums. And then we had a band teacher who was very opportunistic, and so he went and bought the school a bass guitar and said, "Here, try this out." And
Really?
then and
Nice.
yeah, and he was very. He was very much an enabler. Oh, you want to play rock and roll? All right. Well, let me show you some rock and roll songs. And so, he
Nice.
and he allowed several of my friends and I to put together a band and use all the school's equipment, and we could go to the school at any time, day or night, and we had a key to get in, and we could plug in our guitars and practice and play and do whatever. And so he really was a huge influence on several of us,
Yeah,
and
I can
fun,
imagine.
yeah. Funny
And
thing
it,
is, the only people I really keep in contact with from my growing up years were
yeah,
guys I made music with, and we still talk
yeah, yeah.
almost daily.
That is then the music that connects, in this case. Yeah.
Yes,
It's like in our case, in this community, then the motors that connect.
yes.
Yeah, that's then the music. Yeah. Oh, it's very nice. I've never did so much in music that I really played in a band. Really not, because I'm really bad at playing. But I also have here drums. By the way, you cannot see it, but it is a little bit outside the frame here. So
Excellent.
electronic drums, and yeah. So music is also a little bit a thing for me as well. But that is nice. So that's also why the question is here, of course.
It's a really rewarding way to try to be creative. Like I feel
Yeah.
like you can be really creative really quickly if you can get around a musical instrument a little bit. And
Yeah, for me, as I said, I was not very good at playing. Still not, and I even got an app that is really funny. Yesterday evening from a friend who is doing all kind of remixes again, and I can remember maybe when I was 25 or so, he asked me to make a remix, to remake a song, an old song. And now they're asking again to me, can you please finish that song and blah 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 blah. And I know it. Before you know it, you're busy 3 weeks only with that, and yeah, I do not have the time for that anymore. That's a little bit the thing, or I should say, I do not want to spend the time on it anymore because
yeah, yeah, I understand that. I feel like as I get older, I I am more limited on my free time, and so
exactly.
like my guitars will sit if I can go ride my dirt bike. Which when I got a dirt bike again 3 years ago, I made an active effort to not completely neglect the musical instruments.
Yeah, but it is difficult, and it is with every hobby. You can only enjoy the hobby if you also spend a certain amount of time in it, because if you leave it alone too long, yeah, then you feel like, ah, crap, it's not going as well as I has ever been, or something like that. That's a little bit the thing, and that's probably
Yeah.
also with the music. Eh? If you do not play a long time, then you're like, ah, I cannot play this song anymore, and you get frustrated about that, right?
Yeah, it seems that the more proficient I am at something, the more I enjoy doing it. And
Yeah, yeah, but it's, I think, normal for every person.
yeah,
I think. And that's also with AJ. He enjoys riding. He forgets that sometimes, but when he
yeah.
rides, then he's, oh yeah, oh, I enjoy this. Duh.
One of the great things about the Moto Academy is we talk so much about the process and focusing on the process, and it's very for me with music. It, up until the Moto Academy, it was really difficult for me to focus on the process. I just wanted to pick up the guitar and play that amazing riff
Mm-hmm.
that I had in my head, but I didn't think about the process of getting to the point where my head could tell my hands to do it and my hands would do it. And so, actually being in the Moto Academy has elevated my musical journey because
Okay.
I've learned to focus on the process more than just trying to get that result.
Yeah, that is, I think, but that is, we will come to that in the questions about motocross, because I also make the transition to the TMA. Yeah, that is a little bit the extra that, especially I would say, AJ is adding, the extra flavor that he is adding, so to say. So next to the motocross thing, that he also adds in, okay, how to look at the world, how to perceive the world, etc. So, and indeed, that is what you're saying here.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start with the motocross questions.
All right.
And the first one, I think, because I sent you the questions, this one you probably thought about it a little bit. So, when and what was the origin for the love of motocross? So, where did it start for you?
Well, welcome to the real GP story time.
Oh,
So I grew up in rural Idaho,
yeah,
in the mountains, and on a farm.
yeah.
And the farmer next to us had sons who liked to race motocross, and they had a bunch
Ah,
of property, and they built a massive track. It
yes.
was probably it would probably rival Glen Helen if it was still in riding condition at this point. It was an amazing track,
Oh, wow,
and
so big.
it was, yeah, very big.
Wow.
And uh, they had a downhill, and the record jump in 1985 was 212 feet down this hill. If you can imagine doing that on 1980s suspension,
Yeah, they
mind.
did it, eh?
But yeah, this track was amazing. They held races quite a bit. I remember when I was 10 years old, Guy Cooper, when he was on Suzuki, factory Suzuki, came and taught a class at this track.
Oh, wow, yes.
But it was close enough to our house that we could hear the two-stroke revs from our backyard on race day. And excuse me.
Yeah, don't worry.
And and so we would go to the races all the time as kids. And then that track eventually closed, and another one of our neighbors opened up another track, and they had huge races all through my teens. And all of my friends, well, not all, but most of my friends had bikes, and they rode and raced.
But in those days, then, because you're talking about 10, indeed, that is a nice age to get exposed to these things, because then most of
Yep.
the time it starts, I would say, that you get sort of triggered with these things.
Yes.
Uh, eh, were your parents into these things, or
Not at all.
not at all? Yeah, exactly.
No. The farming mentality was the farm came first for everything, and so I didn't have a dirt bike. We had trail bikes that were used for farm work, but that was as close
Ah,
to
okay.
having a motocross bike that I ever had, and they weren't really all that trail worthy. But
Yeah.
but so I never had my own bike as a kid.
No, okay.
I would ride my friends' bikes sometimes.
Okay.
The closest we really got was we'd take our BMX bikes to the motocross track and hit whatever jumps we could hit on that.
Indeed, ride the
So,
BMX.
so I was 23 years old when I bought my first bike.
Okay. Now that
Yeah.
is then the transition to the next question.
All
So,
right.
what was then the first bike?
My first bike. This was in 2001. I found a clapped out 1989 YZ250WR, which is kind of the predecessor to the YZ250X that we have today.
Yeah.
It's basically a competition trail version of the YZ. I
Okay.
tore it down to the frame. I rebuilt it, rode that for a year or two, and then passed it off to my younger brother, the big VP.
The big
And
PP.
yep, oddly enough, he's about half my size, but he's the big VP. So,
Yeah, that's better. That is,
but
that's
but
that's okay.
and my next bike. So I don't know. I might be going into your next into your next question there, but
No, don't worry.
I graduated from that bike to I actually went and got a job at a Yamaha dealership so that I
Well,
could get a good deal on a bike. That was my whole point in getting the job at the dealership. And so in 2004, I got a very lightly used 2004 YZ450F that came in on trade with about 10 hours on it,
okay.
and that was my that was my first, like, basically like a new bike for me.
Yeah,
And
10 hours is like nothing, right?
yeah, and I rode that for a couple of years, and then I went from that to a 2006 CRF 450R. But yeah,
Okay.
the first bike was an '89 YZ250.
Okay. Now, um, I think I already hear the answer, but that's a little bit the common question: two-stroke or four-stroke or electric?
Well, much like is it Will Rogers, who said he never met a man he didn't like. I've never met a bike I didn't like.
Okay. Good. Good.
The bike I own now, I ride a 2004 CR250 two-stroke.
Two-stroke.
Uh, I absolutely love it, and I tend to get along with the two-stroke power better than the four-stroke power these days. Uh,
And why
and
is that for
I
you?
don't know why. I think it's the fun factor of it. I tend to see it as a challenge to ride the two-stroke, try to be somewhat competitive with
Mm-hmm.
the four-strokes.
Okay.
When I bought this bike, we were living up in Washington, and all the riding up there was sand riding, and so the CR250 was the power characteristic
Perfect.
was perfect for that, and so I bonded with the bike immediately. There was about a 13-year gap between my 2006 CRF 450 and the 2004 CR250. And so I didn't ride for 13 years, but when I came back to that, I basically came back to the same bike, as far as the ergonomics, the frame, the handling goes. And so it was very familiar to get back onto a Honda after 13 years off a bike. But
Okay. So you're answering indeed the next question. So there was a break of 13 years, you say.
there was, yes.
And why is that?
Well, there were several reasons. One of them we covered in the podcast with Ryder.
Oh, yeah.
When we found out we were having Ryder, I was very excited to have a kid who I could get into dirt bikes. And then, with his
Yeah.
physical disabilities, it wasn't an option, and so I didn't want to leave him behind to go ride dirt bikes.
No.
And there were some other factors there. When you kind of unexpectedly have a child with a lot of extra medical needs,
Mhm.
it strains a lot of things, and so
Yeah.
it just wasn't in the cards to have a bike. And then, in late 2020, early 2021, Ryder said to me, "Hey, Dad, if you want to ride, go right ahead." And that just happened to coincide with a couple things. One, me finding AJ on YouTube, and two, one of my buddies, a guy I was actually playing in his band, he said, "I'm trying to clear out my garage, and I've got about 3 bikes too many. Do you want to buy one?"
Well,
And it happened to be that CR250, so I bought it.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little bit a few things that come together, and then you're like,
Mhm.
hey, okay, we can go back to that. Oh, nice. Yeah. I guess that is everybody has a story like this in his life. Yeah, for
Yeah.
you, the story is like this. For another person, it is something else. But I think that is pretty common. Yeah, that somebody has a break and comes back, or uh, maybe in my case, I would say it's more like as a child, I also looked at other guys driving the motocross bikes. My parents did not buy a bike for me or something. They were like, if you want to do that, you do that when you're older. And so I also started late, really, with motocross. So it was like a child thing, like, okay, I wanted to do this. And it was also a little bit a coincidence in a few things that happened because I was really busy with music. To be
Mhm.
honest, that thing that the person was asking me, that was the last thing that I almost did, and did not finish because I said I'm going to stop this.
Mhm.
And then yeah, I don't know. I thought, well, I want to do sports that I uh, would not hesitate to start. That was
Mhm.
for me the thing. And then I said, well, let's investigate if I can start and do motocross. That's a little bit how it starts for me.